What's going on, awesome people? It's a pleasure to have you all here this afternoon. It is Monday, April 17th. Wherever you are, I hope you're doing well and healthy, and that even though it's a Monday, that you're excited for the week to come. If you're not familiar with the Awesome People series, I want to take a moment to kind of let you know what that is. So Awesome People is something that is a podcast that I started like 3 years ago. And I did a lot of the episodes during the pandemic when we all had nothing to do and we were just twiddling our thumbs. And I had the pleasure of interviewing some of the most awesome Iranians that I admired, whose journey I have appreciated. And I wanted to just kind of put a spotlight on some awesome Iranians so that the rest of us can get to know, more about them and perhaps learn from them, be inspired by them, be motivated by them. And so I did a bunch of those podcast episodes, and then I've also done like the Awesome People Instagram live series. So have interviewed a ton of amazing entrepreneurs and just really cool people that are doing great things in their respective fields. And so the last like 16 weeks we've been doing a lot of the Countdown to Freedom in Iran live stream series every Wednesday at 8 p.m. But I wanted to start doing more of these Awesome People podcasts. And today I wanted to have Chelsea Hart be our guest because Chelsea has been such an outspoken individual in the Style Revolution, and we've had her on a couple of live streams so far, but haven't had a chance to really get to know who Chelsea is as a person, really find out about their upbringing, how they got into comedy, how they got into activism, and we're also going to talk about some of the upcoming events that Chelsea's got coming up, including May 6th in Miami. So in just a few minutes, I'll definitely bring Chelsea on. But in case you're not following the Countdown to Freedom in Iran series every Wednesday night, please join us this Wednesday, April 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Our special guest is going to be Yasaman Mohsani. Yasaman is the lead actor in this amazing, powerful, impactful short film called Rise, which I really encourage you to watch. It's about 10-12 minutes. It's very heartbreaking. It's very powerful. It hurts to watch, but it is a very true account of what's happening to the women of our homeland of Iran. And so I'm so happy that I get a chance to have this conversation with Yasaman on Wednesday. So I hope you join us this Wednesday, April 19th at 8 p.m. All right. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and give a little background for Chelsea in case you don't know. Chelsea is a stand-up comedian turned political commentator with over 1.6 million followers across social media platforms. They have fused their years of comedy with their passion for history and turned it into a massive following, having become one of the most outspoken non-Iranians against the Islamic regime on the planet. And like I said, for those who don't know yet, on Saturday, May 6th, Unite and Conquer is proud to have Chelsea bring a work in progress of their upcoming Edinburgh Fringe Comedy Hour, Damet Garm, to Miami. It is a show that draws an inspiration from the ongoing Iran Revolution, as well as some of their personal accounts. So Chelsea's got a couple of shows coming up: Chicago, April 22nd, May 6th in Miami, Toronto, May 25th, and also Montreal and LA. The dates Chelsea will have to explain. I don't know the dates yet, but really an incredible individual that I have the pleasure of having a part of the conversation now. So please. And if you're in Miami and you're coming to the show, May 6th, please drop a line over here and let me know you're coming. Cannot wait to have you as part of our in-person guests. Hi,
Hello.
Chelsea. How are you?
Hello. Hello.
Monday.
Good. Yes. Thank you. Hi. Let me push this
Great.
back.
Hey, you got Miami clothes
There
on.
we
I
go.
think you're ready for Miami.
Hi.
You got colorful Miami vibes.
I like to thrift. I'm a big
Excellent.
thrifter.
So you have hopefully you had a good weekend and ready for a busy month and a half, 2 months for you.
Yes. Luckily, I found out that I had too much material at my first preview, so that's like a good problem to have. It was really positive. It was really, 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 really positive. It was a mostly Iranian audience, not surprising, but very positive reactions to the framing of the show.
Where was this?
Very positive. So I was like,
Brooklyn. Okay. So for those
Brooklyn.
who don't know what you have coming up, let's start with that. But then I want to kind of go back a few years and give your whole background and history. But What is this show that you're working on?
This is just kind of a personal love note to the last 7 months of like who wouldn't write a show about Iran, given like if you had my experience, if you had people following you, if you had Iranians in your following, why wouldn't you make a show about that? That doesn't like, I don't know, like it doesn't happen every lifetime that you go viral in another country, that you connect with another country. Like why wouldn't you talk about that? Because I think it taught me a lot about community actually.
Mm-hmm.
1 second, can I okay, nope, that's your live stream, I can't block that one.
Let me know if I need to
Anyway.
do something over here.
uh CT Young 20, if you could just block that person, that would be great.
All right. I've actually never done this before, so I'm gonna see how we can do this. Have they commented? Okay.
No, it's fine,
Fine.
we'll just ignore it anyway. No, it was really positive. I like, given what's happened, given everything that's, taken place over the last 6 months, like why wouldn't you write a show about it? Why wouldn't you draw inspiration? It's been so transformative for me, like the open arms of the community, going to the events, going to the protests, being with people. I mean, it taught me a lot about community. It taught me a lot about what it means to be part of a movement. I think that's really kind of what the show draws on, is all these lessons of the last 6 months, because I have learned a lot. Iranians are very different from much of the West. They have a very different culture, and I think it's a very positive culture. I found Iranians to be actually generally very open people, very curious people, which is unfortunate because they're like held hostage by this regime with no tourists to be nice to. If anybody deserves tourists, it's Iran.
That.
They're
So
just the sweetest
it's
people.
like, so is it like comedy? Is there like some seriousness? Like what can people expect when they come to either Chicago, Miami, Toronto, and now Montreal and LA?
So there's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of like, my style's very audience heavy. I love chatting with people. There's a lot of like dark humor. I have a very dark sense of humor. There's a part of the show where we talk about the mind of Khomeini, which is its own
Do we really have to go to that dark of a place to
comedy.
go to their mind?
I there was a part of the show where I read one of
Oh
his
wow.
books.
Khomeini or Khomeini? Oh geez. Okay, yeah, the one about,
Khomeini.
yeah.
Oh
Oh,
no,
Khomeini,
no,
the
no.
OG.
Khomeini, the first one. The first one. I looked at some of his. Yeah, it was good. It was positive. I think it was cathartic for all the Iranians in the room. I really think it was like cathartic of just like going through his book. Um, I could feel the catharsis because I felt the catharsis a little bit. So it's a lot of dark stuff like that. Like his book of jurisprudence, whatever that one is, the one that is, yeah, I
No
read
bueno.
that. Oh my god. It's no, but it's not. It's just so ridiculous. Just
What
that a human
isn't
being
isn't
could.
isn't that
That's
isn't that the
that's part of the
one
show.
where,
It's
because
like the
I think
fact.
the journalist Samira, I think like kind of went through some of the pages and how like if accidentally like your cousin falls on your private parts, then it's not like incest or something like that. There's some crazy stuff in
Yeah,
there, not too
yeah,
surprisingly, but yes.
yes, yeah. No, that's the one. So part of the show is like introducing non-Iranians, because I also feel like outside of Iran, definitely people like, oh, big mean government. Ooh, like I think they just have this image of like big mean government does mean stuff, and not this is what would happen if you gave the Westboro Baptist Church an economy at their disposal. This is what happens. Iran. That's what it is. Like people don't realize the level of just bonkers shit that nobody's ever questioned for 44 years. Nobody's ever questioned it. Everybody's just like, oh, that's their culture. No, nobody's culture is this book. This book he wrote, like, say what you will about the Prophet Muhammad, but like, he was at least convincing. Like, people went to war for Muhammad. People went to war for Jesus. Like, they are convincing archetypes of religious, whatever you want to say. Like, they're convincing people. They were charismatic people. Mr. Khomeini, like, that's, I can't give too much away. I can't give too much away because then it's like it ruins part of the show. But like, this guy's a nutter. He doesn't like. I remember I read a part about the show. It was the Arabic that he wrote this book in was so broken and so grammatically incorrect it had to be edited. Like, that's the level of, like, when I say this is like a crazy book, it wasn't even like in the language he tried to write it in. He was illiterate.
Did you ever have any concerns about integrating like comedy into this program? Like, were you reluctant at all and wondering how the audience was going to kind of accept comedy and this type of stuff, or were you just going to wing with it and see how?
No, I wasn't too worried because I know what I want to say. I think one of the keys in comedy, and what I've done in my content and what I've made the conscious decision for a few years now, is it's all about who you're laughing at. It's not the laughing that's the issue. It's who we are joining in to laugh at. And in the show, really, my focus kind of remains on the big guy, the big guys. It's the focus for part of the show is Iran, but also, the IRGC is kind of the big guy in Iran, but like also in part of the show, I'm talking about the big guys here in America who fund these news networks that constantly keep us in a cycle of rage mongering, who use propaganda to pit us against each other. I'm laughing at those and other parts of the show. So I'm very conscientious of who I'm framing my arguments against so that the people in the audience can join in. I think that's the key chemical sort of ingredient to a good comedy show, is that the people you are with feel like they are with you.
And so in the show that you
stories.
have in these different cities, there's that audience interaction as well. Like, are they kind of like part of the experience?
A little bit. I mean, I like to chat to audience anyway. I'm very interactive. I'll take things in, and it also it makes it a little bit more personal. There are people who come to comedy shows because they want to join in. They want to have an opportunity to laugh with the comedian. So I do like to interact with people.
So Iranians definitely that have been paying attention to the revolution, they've gotten to know you as far as the content you created. But I don't think a lot of people really know Chelsea Hart as a person. So can you kind of take us back to your upbringing? Like, where were you born? Where were you raised? How did you go down the road into comedy?
I was born and raised in Alaska till I was 21 years old.
I didn't realize it was until that late. Okay.
Yeah, until I was 21. I was going to be a pastor.
You came to the closest profession.
The closest one being a comedian. I used to be really, really religious. I begged my mom to send me to Bible college. And thank God she didn't.
So you actually were interested yourself, but then your parents were like, hey, how about you don't?
No. My mom was just like, yeah, okay. No, my mom is still religious. My mom's like super religious, but she was just like, no, you're an entertainer. Chelsea, you're an entertainer. Okay, that's where I'm going to draw the line. Chelsea, you're an entertainer. Okay. We are entertainers. My mom was a singer as well. So she's just like, Chelsea, there's just things in this family. We're just gonna keep a tradition, which is with the fact that we're singers. And I was just like, okay. and like, luckily she did do that because I quit college after a couple of years and then went to Europe and became who you saw. So I'm very happy.
And by the way, no Iranian here can relate to your mom encouraging you to become an entertainer, by the way. So not a single Iranian. As somebody who's been in entertainment for 25 years, I can attest that nobody wanted me to do this. But so tell me about the first 21 years in Alaska. How was that for an upbringing?
I mean, it's very empty. I mean, growing up there and then moving to London and then getting used to London and coming back, I just like, I remember being on the beach for the first time in years by our community, and just literally the unbroken skyline. Like I could see the horizon. It was the water was so still and still clear. I could literally see the horizon, and I just like I got a little like motion sick. I was like, oh my god, because I just realized for the first time in years I hadn't seen the skyline. I hadn't seen the horizon because of skyscrapers living in London. Like I hadn't seen the flat. I thought I would fall off. It's very, very different. Like I don't know how to put this. Like when you're from there, it's very normal. A lot of these things are very normal. Explaining it to outside people is a little difficult, like the nuances. Like for instance, Alaska has the highest proportion of indigenous people of any state in the union. So we do grow up with Native studies in school and stuff. That was a very big formative part of who I am. My mom used to take me to Native heritage centers for like tours and stuff from the tribes and everything. Like it was very important to her. So that's a big part of Alaskan life is, you know, our relationship to Indigenous Alaska, which I think inspired some of my content. Actually, when I first got on TikTok, I knew that I wanted to do kind of decolonial content, kind of like progressive commentary. And it was important for me when I first got on TikTok at the beginning of the pandemic. I found, you know, Native creators to promote and to kind of connect with and stuff. Like that actually probably in Alaska is the biggest thing that I've taken with me into my life is my kind of, it's very formative. Like when you're in third grade in Alaska, they have you mapping out the different language groups of Alaska. Now, it's not a complete education because they're having us map out all these romantical language groups without telling us where they all went, you know? Oh, they'll just be like, well, map out the Haida language. And, oh, by the way, there's only 25 speakers left. Why is that? They're just like, and on to the next sub, you know, obviously, like in my area, the American settlers kind of came in and just scooped up the best hunting and fishing spots, which then literally forced the Katnuana to adopt Western lifestyles in order to be able to still live because they couldn't hunt or fish like they used to before. So stuff like that in my adolescence, in my child, that kind of actually did inform a lot of my content later in life, just because I had that very formative experience. You know, obviously we all grow and stuff. So I still was like not who I was when I left Alaska, but that was a very like key part of kind of my aspirations going into the world.
Was there a moment that you fully realized that comedy is going to be your career? Because I know in the very beginning, I have a lot of comedian friends, and like you kind of got to grind two things: do a professional thing and then the comedy thing. But then, was there a moment where you're like, "I'm going all in"?
So my comedy life was an interesting one. I came to the UK in 2014. I started street performing at the Edinburgh Fringe, which I'm going to be going to this August. I started street performing there. At first, I had a guitar and would play guitar, and nobody stopped. Nobody cared. And then I remembered I could sing Ave Maria because I won awards for my voice growing up in school. Like I went to like special honor choirs and stuff, so I could sing opera, and I sang opera. Suddenly, 30 people stopped on the street, and that's how I started street performing opera. And then I did that for another year, and then the next year I went back to the Edinburgh Fringe, got a cold in the
Oh,
middle of the Fringe, and lost my voice. And after I was done languishing over some NyQuil for a week, I went to a comedy show with a friend of mine and stayed to talk to the comic who was German, and I had just left Germany. So we bonded, and I ended up just following all these comedians around at this festival and ended up doing my first gig. It went really well. Really, 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 really well. It was like really good. People didn't realize it was my first gig. So that was fun. And that was in 2015 now. So 8 years of comedy.
so it was music and then singing and then comedy, but now it's fully comedy. Like, do you think you'll ever integrate instruments and sing?
I'm still a singer. I'm still a singer. I just haven't. So I used to do in my TikToks, I used to do parody songs every now and again. I just haven't had a reason to sing about the IRGC because it's just really terrible and awful. You know, just not going to be like, IRGC. I'm not going to, like, I don't have any reason to make a comedy song about these murderers, you know? So I haven't yet. But I do still sing. I do still sing. Comedy is something that became a form of catharsis, became a form of expression. I think I was always a little bit meant to be a comedian. I grew up in theater, so that was like my mom used to put me in local theater and stuff, and performing and being on stage and acting on stage was something that I'd always kind of grown up around. You know, even when I wasn't acting in the plays, I would help make the sets as like a little kid. It was a very big part of my life. So I think I was always meant to find some way to be performing on stage. And my mom, like, she doesn't get my comedy, but she's supportive.
And so I want to kind of transition to what's happening right now with Iran. And first of all, do you think that there's been like a drop off in people talking about Iran and the news talking about Iran and other Iranians or so talking about Iran?
There has been, and not for the reasons people think. I don't like the media spin of, oh, it's all going back to normal. It's not fucking going back to normal. Point blank. Now it's a matter of strategy. Now it's a matter of, okay, we have 7 months worth of momentum, and the IRGC is trying to join BRICS. They are poisoning schoolgirls. They are still torturing and raping people. I think now it's shifted to more of a strategic movement than just plain out protests and demonstrations like it was the first few months. But it definitely has dropped off. And that has also shown in the fact that, yes, the UN expelled them from the Women's Rights Commission, but they just gave them a different position just a couple days ago, which will start in 2024, the Crime Prevention Commission of the UN. So we still have to keep the momentum. I think people maybe are fatigued because it is so awful. It is so terrible. There is no one to talk about it with. Like, I try to bring up Iran to non-Iranians, and like the blank stares.
To what do you credit the fact that you've not only kept going, but you've become even more impassioned to the point that, like, you know, you're having all these shows around the country and Canada. I'm trying to see what we can do to instill the same type of energy to other people that you keep on having on your end. So what do you credit to? Like, why do you keep on going?
I mean, I think one thing non-Iranians have to understand about this community is that they are so ready to be your friend, and they are so ready to be there for you and help you in the movement, help you with information, give you assistance. And, you know, I think in the West, how do I put this? Like, I've gotten more people using kind of the Iranian cause as like a measuring stick more than being involved in it. I think it's become a talking point a little bit to some people. I don't know. Like for me, like it was easy for me to care about Iran. It was easy for me to get impassioned because I already spoke a language that had a lot of Persian words in it, that I already knew they were Persian words, and I admired the Persian words, and I knew that the Persian words were pretty. Like Urdu, I love Urdu poetry, and Urdu poetry is very renowned because it uses so much Persian, and that makes it a little bit more romantic. So for me personally, like it was very easy to become passionate, very, very easy, because I already enjoyed the language. I already enjoyed Persianified parts of the world. So it was very easy for me to become like impassioned for it. But I mean, I don't know how to translate this to other people in the West so much, because unfortunately the West is very individualistic and Persians are not. Iranians, Afghans, a lot of people in Asia, they're very community oriented, very deeply woven into their communities in a way that the West lacks. I mean, you and I both know, and a lot of the people in the live will know, even the words for Persian family members, like in English, it's just mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, everybody. Though you have the nuclear family and everybody else is just aunt, uncle, cousin, right? Whereas in Persian, it's mom, dad, sister, brother, your mother's brother's child, your mother's sister's child, your father's brother's child, your father's sister's child, your father's mother, your mother's mother, your father's father, like all these different words, which shows the intricate sort of set of priorities that a lot of people in Asia have for the family structure, because that's what language is. It's priorities. It tells us what's important to people. And linguistically, in so many Iranian languages and languages around that region of the world, it's so much more deeply connected and significant, the different parts of the family, than it is in the West. And I think that's really translated over into the whole just mentality of people in the West, like, oh, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. Like, you know, a lot of them probably wouldn't understand that the IRGC was mostly responsible for the Syrian civil war. Like, a lot of them probably wouldn't care. Like, but, you know, they're just brought up in this very hyper individualistic place that, like, I don't know personally how to get people out of.
No, it makes complete sense. By the
Do you
way,
know what
I
I'm
have
saying?
a question here from one of the guests that I'm going to get to in a second. If anybody else has questions for Chelsea, I want to dedicate the last 10, 15 minutes to having Chelsea answer questions. But before I get to the question, you were talking about Persian words, and I know you've been studying Persian. You obviously know Urdu. Let's go back and just talk about the fact that you chose the name Damet Garm as the name of your program. So you want to kind of tell us, you know, how you came up with using that as the name of your show? It's a great word.
It's such a great saying. It's such a great saying. Damet Garm, may your breath be warm. I love that. And actually, it was so interesting. Like, a lot of Iranians sent me a message like, oh, I forgot what that meant.
Yeah.
I just used it so much, I forgot. And I was like, how Iranian is that? You're just saying like the most romantic thing I've ever heard in my life. And you're like, what? Me? No. Seven. Me? Like, you know? It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And that's what I felt like every step of the way. Like, Iranians just with open arms, open hearts, open DMs, just with any answers to any questions, any assistance. And it's just been amazing. And that's kind of what I wanted to build the show off of, is the sense of community that I really fell in love with, which is what the show kind of centers around. Is so much of our discourse in the West revolves around the fact that we are all so far from each other, and we have no intentions of going close to each other to really get in the trenches. And that's what Iranians are doing right now. Iranians are not perfect. I don't mean to like blow Iranians out of proportion. Iranians are not perfect people at all. But they've made a collective choice that the amount of fear they have for one thing will outweigh what they do for each other. And that is something that we in the West, I think, have been programmed into the opposite of. I think, you know, you have the Matt Walshes of the world, the Ben Shapiros of the world, making wildly inflammatory statements about queer people in order to get you fearful of something, get you fearful, or on the left, the perfectionism of the left, like the once you make a mistake, you're gone forever. I mean, there's varying levels of mistake. If you've committed a crime or a sexually deviant thing, because sexual crimes are very, very under reported. So if you've committed a crime or you're a sexual deviant, like doing stuff to people, then I think you deserve to lose your platform. But if you've, you know, if something's come out that you were someone a while ago and you're clearly not that person anymore,
Right.
Do we not want people to grow? Do we not
Yeah,
want to build that community?
The cancel culture went overboard,
like,
you know, like it would just become like cancel for everything and anything.
oh, it's crazy. It's very cannibalistic too. Like, that's not community building.
Yeah.
That's punitive measure. That's not community building. That's not, like, excoriating someone for a tweet you found 10 years ago is not community building. Not to say that we shouldn't hold public people accountable, because we need to hold public people accountable. It's already made the world a better place. Harvey Weinstein is gone. We said #MeToo, and with our voices, we made him a pariah. We need that power as people in the world. We need that power. We need that connection to be able to hold people in power to account. But we also need to know when that dips into bullying, when that dips into dehumanization. There's a whole host of the left that will weaponize leftist lexicon to justify their every whim. And some really nasty, misogynistic bullying they will justify with leftist lexicon. Is horseshoe theory is real. That's kind of what my show is about, is talking about real community building, not just rage mongering. Because I mean, it's kind of a term I came up with called morality farming. It's kind of, so what is morality farming? It's like literally when you sit kind of with a very half-baked take, not really well thought out, but you just really want people to know that you're moral. I'm moral, and I'm going to tell you that I'm moral. Doesn't really do anything productive. You're not starting a conversation. You're just
Exactly.
like, it's like virtue signaling, but you want people to join in on it. You're farming that moral reaction. Matt Walsh does it. He's Matt Walsh, for those of you that don't know, is a conservative commentator. He will spin any single headline to get like some moral like point of view from it and farm that reaction without actually doing anything constructive, without actually donating to, you know, families in need, any of these, just farming that emotional moral reaction. Come join it. We're gonna be very moral together. You know, Matt Walsh does it. All these right-wing guys that are currently going after trans people, you know, they call them pedophiles and stuff. That's morality farming. That's just like, oh, I'm going to take this moral stance. Come join in on my moral stance. Not actually doing anything constructive. That's kind of like what this show is kind of talks about, because Iranians are calling that out right now amongst each other. They're calling out the bullshit. They're calling out the fruitless, meaningless stuff that people are used to doing, which kept them, you know, fighting with each other. That's the stuff that Iranians are breaking out of and calling out. And that's kind of what what these last 7 months have really taught me, is that it is possible to police our community and make sure that we're having genuine discussions, that we're having genuine, constructive discussions for the best needs of everyone, is really what Iranians are asking of themselves. And I think that's really the difference between the discourse on in the left or on in the West versus what Iranians are expecting of themselves right now. I think that's the biggest thing. Iranians are calling out the fake bullshit now.
Speaking of calling out fake bullshit and just community and conversations, the reason why I admire comedians is because there are modern day truth tellers, you know, like they really do a very creative way of telling at least their truth, you know. And one of the viewers has a question, asking whether you thought about having a double act with other Iranian comedians, such as like Max, you know. In general, have you thought about collaborating with other comedians to kind of just tell, you know, a story in a more collaborative way or something like that? Have you considered that?
I mean, if any of them want to, if any Iran, like, yeah, let's talk about Iran. Yeah, I mean, if they want me to, like, I'm not Iranian. Like, I'm not Iranian. Like, I'm just still happy I'm here. I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to like play along and watch you guys succeed. You know, like I don't need any. When people started asking me to like come to protests and give speeches, I was like, "What they want? Give me a? They want me to give a speech? Like I was just like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just a fan of the group. I'm just a groupie, you know. So like, if they want to collab, Max, hey Max, Tehran,
I mean,
Maz, you
I'm
got my
sure.
number. But like if they want to, yeah, but I don't expect anything. I've never like said just like come and work with me. The fact that anybody still wants to watch my videos, I'm just
By
like,
the way, there's a lot of people that are really wanting you to sing. I must not have watched all your singing videos. I don't know if you do impromptu singing, but if you do want to share something, you know that the virtual stage is all yours. Maybe at the end. Okay,
maybe
so
at
ladies
the
and gentlemen,
end, maybe at
if
the
you're
end.
tuning in, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions for Chelsea, we're at the end of the program almost. So I want to make sure that if anybody has more questions, that we have Chelsea have an opportunity to answer. So feel free to do that. Okay, so tell while we wait for any questions, what's going on with the Edinburgh Fringe? What's so special about this festival that is happening in August, I believe, right? So tell us about it. You know, there's a
Yes.
GoFundMe going there too. Like it's a lot of expense to get this thing over there. Feel free to share it when you get a chance. And also,
Yeah.
before you answer that, when are you coming to Toronto? Can you give the date for? Oh, May 25th. May 25th,
May
Toronto.
25th. May 25th in Toronto.
Yeah.
It's in my bio. The tickets for Toronto are in my bio. So what is so special about the Edinburgh Fringe? Just a quick background. The Edinburgh Fringe was started after World War II as an answer to the Edinburgh Festival that also goes on. So it's the fringe of the festival. There's the Edinburgh Festival, the fringe. The fringe in a number of decades very quickly overtook the actual Edinburgh Festival and has now become the main festival of Edinburgh. What's so special about it? It's the biggest arts festival in the world. It is the biggest arts festival in the world. You have some of the best acts coming to do monthly runs there. It's like and for comedians, it's kind of comedy summer camp when you get to see all your friends that you like haven't seen in a while from like all international comedy. Like it's like comedian summer camp. We love it. We get to hang out with each other and complain about our terrible shows. Yeah. Oh my God. One year, I did a show to one man. I did the
Oh no.
show to one man. Yeah.
Hopefully he gave a standing
And
ovation
then
at the end.
he was
All
very
right. See, there you
happy.
go.
He was
One at
really
a time.
nice. Um, and then 10 minutes later, I turn around and I run into
Yeah.
Emma Thompson. Yeah, so it's a crazy, but like a lot of TV people are up there. I've met. I don't know if you guys know what Live at the Apollo is in England. I've met the booker for that at the festival just by chance. He's a very sweet man. His name's Anthony. But it's a very big festival, and the expenses just cover the venue. It's a very expensive venue. I'm in the Gilded Balloon, which I've never been able to do before because of what you see. I've never been able to do a big venue like this before because of the expenses you see, because I was, self-employed for many years, and I just kind of went up and did a free show. So this is the first year I'm
can
in one of the
people go
major
and buy
venues.
tickets and come
And
watch
that's
you
why
there?
it's
I mean, is that okay?
soon. I don't know if tickets are out yet,
Okay.
but they
And
will
then
be, and I will announce
people
it
are
once they
asking
are.
about LA. I know you mentioned to me before the live that you're going to be in Montreal and LA. What are the dates for that? I know tickets are not on sale yet, but do you know the dates?
I don't think they're on sale yet. I think LA is maybe the 19th. I have to double check and put tickets out, but
Okay,
it's going to
that's
be
cool.
the weekend of the
Basically,
19th,
make
I think,
sure you follow
of
Chelsea in
May.
her bio. Chelsea will be updating all the upcoming shows. But again, April 22nd is the closest one in Chicago. That's this weekend. May 6th, Chelsea's coming down to Miami. Thank you so much. May 25th, Toronto, and then Montreal and LA. Just stay tuned. Yeah.
Still updating, still updating. And if we sell out Toronto, because the venue is very small, if we sell out Toronto, we might be able to add a second show. Depends. Somebody told me I had a lot of fans in Toronto, so we have one show. But if it does
Hopefully.
sell out, we're gonna
Fingers
add a
crossed.
second show in Toronto.
Okay. If there's any other somebody asked if you've been to Iran before, but I know you told me last
No,
time you're definitely looking forward to and
no.
excited to go.
Yeah, who fucking wouldn't? Iranis are so sweet. I think it's an old stereotype, like, ooh, you're going to Iran. I think most
Yeah.
Iranians are very
Yeah.
excited to see
I mean,
foreigners.
I
Very
don't even,
excited.
even in the past, whatever, 40 years, anyone that's ever gone non-Iranian has nothing but positive experiences. Like they won't do anything to Americans. They actually, and the Iranian people in general,
Oh yeah.
they're incredibly hospitable and kind and welcoming. Um, yeah.
Oh yeah. This is actually part of the show because once I started going to protests, like people started bringing me
That's good.
gifts because they
That's
knew I
good.
would be there. It's funny in New York, like every major protest, like people would like bring gifts, knowing that they would see me and like come and bring the presents. Like I knew you would be here. Here's your present. Like it's just so sweet. A little girl, actually, a little 9-year-old girl. I'm always so surprised when people tell me that their kids love my videos because I swear like a sailor. So this little 9-year-old girl is like handed me a present and she gave me a giant pre-Islamic Iranian flag. So actually it's so funny. The videos that people see of me wrapped
Yeah.
up like a turtle in the flag,
You
that
mean when you
flag
were
was
like in
actually a
DC or
gift.
something in the streets?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My little freedom turtle suit. The
Yeah,
one that
yeah,
you see me wrapped up, that was a gift. And I love it. I'm just like, okay, I got two Iranian. I love my Iranian flags. I bring them with me everywhere. If I go to like a major protest, bringing the
Um,
flags. Love it.
what is it that you've learned about Iran or Iranians that you didn't know at the beginning of this revolution?
Um, just like how much trauma they've had to
Wow.
endure in silence, I think is the biggest thing that really like sold me. Because again, like I said, I already knew Persian poetry styles. I knew Iranians had a very philosophic, romantic history of you know writing and philosophy. Just very very rich history. I already knew that. I knew that because of so much influence on other parts of the world. I knew what Persian writing was like. I knew how beautiful it was. So I kind of had this vision of like old Iran, which is what the one that like I think a lot of people forget that those romantic people and those beautiful people and those sweet people, it's not like in the past. They're still here. It's you. It's the people in this live stream. It's them. It's them. They're here. They never went away. And I think that's one of the biggest things that uh, really solidified for me how much in the past tense so much of our popular mainstream coverage is of anything Middle Eastern, and to put it more broadly, like I really, it really sunk home for me how still so much of mainstream conversations surrounding the Middle East are very, very centered on the idea that it's sort of this black, cavernous abyss of misery where people just like to sit there and go Magbar America, like as if it's so one-dimensional. It's such a one-dimensional thing. That's a very
It's
racist
amazing
caricature
it's
to put on
amazing what
someone. It's a
propaganda can
very
do, huh?
racist caricature. Yeah, yeah. So it's a very racist caricature that I subconsciously accepted, a lot of Americans subconsciously accepted, even with the best intentions, non-violently. If an Iranian, I've met Iranians, I have Iranian friends. If an Iranian came before me and said, "Hi, I'm from Iran," I'd be like, "Oh, wow, you're from Iran." But I would like, always kind of be like, okay, being like the way that the UN kind of pacified the regime in the name of cultural relativism, like, oh, let's not say anything about Islam, let's not say anything about their rules because that's not our culture. I was that person. And now I realize that that was all the shell of propaganda that they protected themselves in, and how much trauma and just senseless trauma. Like, I've had Iranians cry with me. There was an Iranian in an event I was at. He was one of the wait staff, and he stops in the middle of this loud room. He stopped. He's like, "Are you Chelsea Hart?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Ah!" Like, he like comes over and he just starts bawling. He starts bawling, and I'm just like literally sitting here like, okay, like it's like totally fine, because I was bawling. Like, I've been crying, and this guy, like, literally his family are all being murdered in this country by crazy people, and there's no one he can talk about it with because it makes no sense. The things they're doing, like the IRGC, they're bonkers, and he can't talk about it with anyone. And that's really the thing that solidified for me, like, joining in, is like trying to just translate what I've learned to more non-Iranians. The level of bonkers.
I mean, you've literally
people are
been
bonkers.
a shoulder for people to cry on. That's amazing. That's the power that you've been having as a supporter.
I am the emotional support dog.
So speaking of Persians and the fact that you were at a restaurant, there was a Persian waiter. Somebody's asking, what's your favorite Persian food? I'm sure you've been fed a lot of Persian food the last 7 months. Gourmet sabzi, okay.
Gourmet sabzi is really good. It was worth all the hype. I accidentally ate the lemon.
It was worth all the hype.
I thought it was a potato.
Yeah, eating the lemon is a popular mistake that people make. They chop down right at the beginning and just ruin the taste. Let's see. Somebody's asking if you've been. This is actually one of our uniters here from South Florida. He's a pilot, and he's asking if you've. I'm trying to find the question again, but something like a seaplane in Alaska. Like, have you gone on a seaplane? Am I reading the question correctly here? Hold on. It says, any experience on flying seaplane in Alaska?
Like the ones with the floating little things for water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been on those. Not like landing on water, but I have been on one. That's some of the only ways to go across to certain parts of the state is those little planes. Like, some of the airports. No, there are airports in Alaska that are nothing but a dirt road. Like, if you go to the really, really remote areas of like the bush, the airport is a dirt road.
You were there a couple months ago,
like
right? I think some of the pictures that you had. I think, were you home in Alaska?
Yeah, so that's not my town. My town is not one of the dirt roads. My town is I think my town is one of the first American towns in Alaska. So we are not considered the bush. People coming to our town would see that it was small and see that there's a lot of nature, but by Alaskan standards, it's a town, it's a city.
All right, and then somebody's asking why did you decide to study Urdu?
Why did I say? It was beautiful. This is actually part of the show too, because Hindi kind of ties into like really kind of the initial seed of why I wanted to like learn about Iran, because I just knew about Persian poetry. But that was kind of one of the seeds of like why I got so passionate about Iran, because I knew things about Iran previously, right? No, but I just learned Urdu because, well, Hindi is what I started with, but Urdu and Hindi, they're kind of sisters. One's a little bit more Persian, one's a little bit more Sanskrit-y. It was just so beautiful, such a beautiful language, and particularly Urdu, just the mixture of so much Persian with Turkish and Hindi. Very fascinating language, built off of the regional influences on that part of the subcontinent.
I know how you've always been very open about your mental health, and I know it's a very important topic for you in general. In closing, I want you to kind of share any type of advice that you have for anybody that's watching right now that might be going through a tough time and they need like some words of encouragement. If you have anything that you'd like to share to kind of get them into a better place. would love for you to share.
I mean, one of the things that I always like to tell myself is it feels like it's too much because you are doing, like, if something feels too overwhelming and feels like it's too much, you know, when you're carrying a heavy bag of groceries, it's heavy and it's uncomfortable, but you're still doing it. And that's kind of how I think about hard times. That's kind of how I think about when I've hit the low. The fact that I am feeling the weight of it means I am withstanding it. I think that's an important repurposing of the pressure we feel sometimes. That pressure means that you are meeting the challenge. It might feel like too much, but the fact that you're still going, you're still rising up, you're meeting that challenge. It's a hard challenge, and it will pass. It will pass. It will go away, and it will go because you did the work to withstand what was going on.
When you're trying to take 10 bags from the car into the apartment, just so you don't have to go for it a second time. It's, you know, you're taking on too much, you know, so unload some of the unnecessary essentials, you know.
Yeah, but also don't worry if you feel emotionally exhausted. Don't blame yourself or demonize yourself for feeling pressure, for feeling emotional fatigue. I think a lot of people like, oh, I'm broken. There's burdens we are all lifting all the time, and sometimes you get a little tired from doing it a lot, but remember that means that you have been rising to the challenge. You've been doing hard work.
Negative talk can really negatively impact or even like just worsen the situation. So if you keep on saying negative things about yourself, it's not going to help you get out of this rut. But yes, over time we all come out of it, but just have to be more positive.
So somebody asked me my background in politics. I am a comedian who's traveled to 30 countries. And I was lucky enough in my 20s to kind of center my life around travel and exploration and just kind of going to communities and talking to them and learning from them. That's really my background, is just the fact that I was able to travel as far as Dubai. That's, you know, I just did a lot of self-study and was able to go to these places myself after, you know, I'd done my self-study. So that's really kind of the background I have. I try to tell this to people. I'm just a comedian. I'm not, you know, Jon Stewart. I'm just a comedian.
You don't need a poli-sci degree to be involved in what's going on in the world politically or care. So. Sarah Nikri is wondering, so are you optimistic about Iran's current revolution?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the regime is stressing. I think we just have to keep the same pressure. It's been 7 months and people are a little tired, but like we have to keep the same pressure. I'm going to be making a couple videos here in the next couple of days about the new commission that the IRGC has been put on and stuff, because still like they're still like trying to do shit under our noses. Keep focused. I think at this, people are a little tired and people really want to start seeing results. So I think there's a little infighting going on. We have to just stay focused on these guys. It'd be a little
easier if we had a little bit of support from the West, but nobody's supporting. So it's just making it a little bit more challenging. But I'm glad that you're optimistic, as I am. Someone's asking if you're going to be at the Persian Parade in New York this weekend.
I am going to be flying back from Chicago that day.
All right. I'll do this one last question. What I like about Chelsea is the fact that she tells it exactly like it is. Okay, great. We got some fans. All right. Well, listen, in closing, it's almost been an hour. I appreciate those of you who asked questions. We try to get to as many of them as possible. But just a friendly reminder that if you would like to see Chelsea live in action, April 22nd, Chicago. May 6th, right here in Miami. May 25th in Toronto. The dates for Montreal and LA and tickets will be available on Chelsea's bio very shortly, I believe. But it'll probably be sometime next month. So if you are in any of these cities or nearby, I hope that you support this amazing freedom fighter that we're blessed to have as Iranians in this revolution. Chelsea, greatly appreciate you taking so much time out of your day so that we can all get to know you a little bit better. You're an incredibly awesome people for us, and we appreciate you, and we look forward to rolling out the Persian carpet on May 6th in Miami.
Thank you so
Zandagi
much.
Azadi,
Thank
good
you,
night.
guys.
Damet Garm. There you go.
Damet
Good
Garm.
ending. Ciao. All right. So very, very grateful for Chelsea joining us. We're going to be uploading this video on the Unite and Conquer YouTube channel. It's going to be on the Awesome People playlist. So be sure to check it out there. While you're on the Unite and Conquer YouTube channel, please punch that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. And you can like that video. And I'm also going to be sharing this on the Instagram. So please feel free to like it, comment it, and share it. You know, I really wanted to make sure I have this conversation with Chelsea because I don't know if a lot of Iranians really know Chelsea as a person, you know. So hopefully you got to know Chelsea a little bit better and appreciate all that Chelsea's been doing throughout this entire 7 months. It's really commendable. Definitely appreciate having anybody that's using their platform to talk about Iran, but especially a non-Iranian. In closing, this Wednesday, the Countdown to Freedom in Iran is our weekly live stream series, 8 p.m. via my Instagram. It's all about news and updates, and we always have a special guest. And this Wednesday, the guest is going to be Yasaman Mohsani. If you don't know who Yasaman Mohsani is, she is a lead actor from a brand new short film that came out about 2-3 weeks ago called Rise. And this short film, Rise, go YouTube it. It's 10 minutes. It's emotional. It's impactful. It's powerful. It's painful to watch, honestly, because there's just so much like realness in it. And Yasaman did an incredible acting job in it. So I wanted to have her on Wednesday so we can get to know a little bit more about how she got into the role, how it was playing the role. Again, I don't want to give too much away about the short film, but it's 10 minutes and it's worth a watch, you know. It's not for the faint at heart, but it's definitely worth a watch. And if anything, it's something that you want non-Iranians to watch. I feel like Iranians, we know the pain and the suffering and the tragedy and the trauma and the cruelty that our people have been going through, not just in the past 7 months, but for the last 44 years. But this short film, Rise, it needs to be shared by all Iranians so the non-Iranians who may not be privy to what's happening will become a little bit more aware and want to be involved, just like Chelsea has been. So check out Rise and put Rise short film and it'll come up. Thank you for joining, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Awesome People. I definitely will be doing a lot more of these live streams with more awesome people, especially Iranians. If you have any suggestions of who you'd like me to interview next, feel free to drop it here or DM me, however way you want to get a hold of me. Wishing you guys a wonderful rest of the day. For all of you who joined us for the first time, friends of Chelsea, for example, appreciate you. My name is Iman Hushman. Zan Zendegi Azadi. Ba umid azadi. Khodafez. Thank you guys for joining. Ciao.